All right, I just pulled over to show you guys something kind of cool that I found here. Now, when I was doing the research on this dance hall, there was one name that kept coming up, and it was Kate Rockwell, and she supposedly was a famous dancer. But right here on the fence line is this cool old homestead cabin right here. Now, there is a couple more buildings up the road I have marked, and if those turn out to be anything, I'll make sure to show you what I found. And this was quite a large building compared to most buildings you find out here. I think it was September 18th, 1845. The Meek wagon train came right through here, and supposedly they set up their camp right there on that watering hole. Hi, I'm Brian from Northwest Bronco. Welcome back to the channel. We are back out here in the Central Oregon desert looking for a little bit of history, and on this trip I'm going to be telling you the story about Kate Rockwell, known as Klondike Kate. Now, you might notice that my trip videos are slow a little bit, and that's because of a couple of reasons. One, it is winter and it's kind of hard to get around out here, and two, I've had kind of an unfortunate chain of events. And it's not necessarily the things going on at home or work, that's all fine. It's just I've had some unfortunate things happen out here in the desert. Now, if you go back a couple of videos, you'll see one where I went out and filmed 15,000-year-old humans where they lived out here in the Central Oregon desert. And about halfway through that trip, I sat on my tripod. Now, a couple of trips before that, I went out and filmed a really awesome homestead. And when I rolled into camp about 7:30 that night, the Bronco caught on fire. And then the last time I was out here, I was over by Glass Butte and I was filming like a bunch of wells. And I decided to take a shortcut and drive over Glass Butte to get to a cabin on the other side I wanted to film. And I got stuck at the top of Glass Butte. Now, I did film that trip, except the drone footage turned out fine, but everything that was on my camera was in slow motion. So when I went home to put the video together, I got literally no footage of it because everything was like I'm stuck in the, I mean, it was all in slow-mo. So I couldn't put a video together. So I was doing my research at home, trying to figure out what I'm going to film for you guys on this trip. And I chose a place called Pringle Flat Dance Hall. Now, this dance hall is pretty cool because people would come from like 70 miles away to come and gather and party and dance all over this area in Central Oregon. So it was a pretty popular place, and I found a giant broken down building out there, and I think that's it. So I'm going to go up and check it out. I have some pictures of it when it was still standing, and I'm going to see if it matches up with the down building. Now, you guys may not know this, but I do a lot of research on the lost Meek wagon train and kind of the route that it took out here. And believe it or not, around, I think it was September 18th, 1845, one of the camp spots for the Meek wagon train was actually right behind where this dance hall is. So there should be a watering hole back there behind it, which I'm going to fly the drone over and see if I can see that spot where they camped that night. Now, when I was doing the research on this dance hall, there was one name that kept coming up, and it was Kate Rockwell, and she supposedly was a famous dancer. And in all the diary pages and things I read, they all mentioned her, that she danced there one time. So I did some research on Kate to figure out who exactly she was, and she was known as Klondike Kate, and she went by a bunch of names: Kate Rockwell, Warner, Manson, and Van Duren, because she was married a whole bunch of times. But evidently she staked a claim out here for about 5 years before moving on. So from this point forward, I'm just going to be calling her Klondike Kate because that's what she was known for. And I did find quite a bit of history about her and quite a few photos. And actually, I found there's a video on YouTube that you can see of her in her late 70s where she was on some game show, and she was on there right before she died. And the guy standing next to her on that game show was actually Knott's. I don't know his first name, but he's the guy that started Knott's Berry Farm. So the basic story is she decided to find some greener pastures, so she wanted to go up to Alaska where the gold rush was going on. And I think it was to get through Canada or into Alaska. There was really strict, it was hard to get in there. So she ended up having to dress like a boy to get onto a ship to make her way up to Alaska. So Kate made her way up to Alaska where she joined I think it's called a Vomvervol show, something like that. I can't really say it right, but it's kind of a variety act where they have like musicians, well-trained animals, dancers, things like that. She was kind of a tap dancer / everything type of dancer. But I guess she was extremely popular with the miners, and they really liked having her because she kept the attention of the miners and kept people in there drinking beer and whiskey while she was doing her dancing. So they loved having her up there. So around 1902, the gold started drying up in Alaska. She decided to come down here to Central Oregon, out here by Brothers. And she's actually one of the few women who homesteaded land out here because they were giving away land out here. There was a handful of women that would come out and homestead. Now, I don't know all the rules about patenting land out here, but I know she had to be out here for like 5 years before she was able to like claim the land. I'm not sure the rules on that, but that's close enough. Now I went ahead and looked at the land patents in the area, and I found that where the dance hall is we're going to be looking at, just south of that, there's a plot of land from Kate Warner. I believe it was Kate Warner was the name, which is going to be Kate Rockwell or Klondike Kate, because she married a rancher or a cowboy or something like that out here named Floyd Warner. So it kind of makes sense that when she was able to patent the land, her last name would be Warner instead of Rockwell. So it's quite a feat she made it out here for 5 years, because when she arrived, she had like $3,000 in cash, $3,000 worth of jewelry, and trunks full of basically hats and dresses and shoes for dancing. So after her 5 years was up out here, she sold the land, moved to Sweet Home, Oregon, where she died in 1957. So she lived in Sweet Home for about 21 years before she passed away. You know, you really can't beat that biscuits and gravy breakfast. I'm pretty much down to eat Mountain House every time I come out here, because I've had my refrigerator crap out a couple of times, so I just bring freeze-dried food now. Just gonna finish packing up camp here, get cleaned up a little bit, and we're gonna head out and see if we can find that dance hall, and then we're gonna try and find that watering hole behind the dance hall where the meat wagon train stayed the night, and then I'm gonna really try to find the home where Klondike Kate may have lived. So we just turned north off of Highway 20 at Brothers, Oregon, and she only lived about a mile or two up this road. She was where her plot of land was, and then about a mile past that was where the dance hall was. And the town of Brothers is actually pretty cool. It's been a couple of different things, but originally it was built around 1912, and it was a stagecoach stop between Primeville and Burns. I think it became a post office around like 1914, something like that, but it was also a restaurant and a gas station up until about 2018. Now that stagecoach stop has changed hands quite a few times, and the most recent reading I did was that they're talking about bringing that thing back into a cafe. I'm actually parked right in the middle of the 320 square acres that Kate Rockwell actually owned, and you can see it's basically a flat bunch of nothing. And unless you have like a drone or aerial surveillance or some kind of a Google imaging, it's hard to see buildings that are broken down, because there could be a building broken down right there and you wouldn't even know it unless you walk out and look or fly a drone. So far, the only thing I'm seeing out here is just this one single post sticking up. But we're going to come back to this spot after we go look at the dance hall. We're going to come back to this property because I have 2 or 3 spots where I think she may have had a house. Okay, we have made it to the spot where supposedly the dance hall was. So let's go ahead and take a look around. So there's the road we came in on right here, and you can see this fence line. And there is some postage right here. It says no trespassing. So this side is BLM, that side of the fence is private. So I'm going to stay on this side of the fence and see what we can see. So as we walk up, you can see some old spray paint can. Here's an interesting can that has a wire around it. I've seen cans that have wires out of the side of them like this. If you know why they did that, put that in the comments. So right there is an old stove, and right there behind it is either a refrigerator or possibly another stove. And this was quite a large building compared to most buildings you find out here. And right there is an old stove jack. Whether or not this was the Pringle Dance Hall or not, I really don't know, because I have one picture of the dance hall and there's very little information about it. And this building is so far gone, it's hard to tell if it matches the shape of that picture. But the clues we do have that kind of lead us to believe that possibly it is that it's one of the largest buildings out here in this area for the era. It has multiple stoves in it, for lots of people maybe, multiple stove jacks, and even some concrete work for the foundation. So, and we have some debris here that's from that time period. Now here's another cool piece of history about this spot, is that just on the other side of those logs there's a watering hole back there. And supposedly, I think it was September 18th, 1845, the Meek wagon train came right through here, and supposedly they set up their camp right there on that watering hole. Now there is a couple more buildings up the road I have marked, and if those turn out to be anything, I'll make sure to show you what I found. If not, then I will meet up with you guys again when we get to Kate's Rockwell's property, because I have one marker where I think that her house may have been. I just pulled over to show you guys something kind of cool that I found here. We're about 15 miles up this road here, and all along this road, there's all kinds of private properties on either side, and there's some posting right there saying no trespassing, because that over there is actually Crook County property. But right here on the fence line is this cool old homestead cabin right here. Now this cabin is actually built in a style that we've seen several times on my videos before, and you can see that these little homesteads, they're never really that big. I mean, you got enough in there for like maybe a bed, maybe a small table and a stove, but that's, you know, you didn't have a lot of materials out here to build with, so they built these small little homesteads. All right, so I just pulled over really quick because I have a marker on the other side of this fence on the side of the road here for another homestead site. And from the research that I did, it's actually a pretty cool homestead. It's pretty big, actually. You can kind of see where the door was in the homestead, and you can kind of see the rafters and things like that. So it's a pretty good one. So I'm going to fly the drone out and show you that. Then we're going to keep on rolling down the road. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see, but the Bronco's way behind me here, and I found a place where it looks like there might be a reasonable place for a homestead. So I walked down here and I found an old fuel can, which is the first thing like I found on this property, and I've been walking for hours. I also found this rock wall. So I'm just gonna kind of walk this whole area because I think this circle is where the homestead may have been. So I'm gonna follow this wall, see if we can find any more garbage or more wall or a broken down building if we're lucky. All right, so we're on the far side by that fence line, and getting close to these two posts sticking up, and here's another sign right here of an old can. And like I said, we are way far away from a road where people would be throwing garbage on the side of the road, so something went on right here. Some wood right there, some looks like fence posts, some barbed wire wrapped around them there and there. That would have been going into her home. Her house was right there. Right here is the last piece of the puzzle. That's going to be the can dump, which I'm going to go through. All the cans are here, and then the root cellar is right there. So root cellar, dump, house. I'm going to guess that was the entryway. All right, I'm just going to kind of hoof it around this area a little bit and then go back to the Bronco to find a place to camp. So I'd like to send out a special thank you to Klondike Kate. If you're listening, we did find your homestead, and it was beautiful out here, and I bet you enjoyed those 5 years. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, maybe subscribe, more Bronco content. See you next time.